Sports.
So
loving sports in
now
Japan.
I know Greg is a big sportsman and a big fan of sports, right, Greg?
I love American football so much. I watch it,
bet on it, and just consume lots of it. That's the one thing that I miss, Greg, because I was a big American sports football fan and NBA fan, but those are the two things that are lacking here. But we'll get to those later. Anyway, so today what we're going to do is we're going to first, why does Japan have a sports day holiday? And the reason is,
oh, that's right, the Olympics.
Right. Now, now I'm going to quiz Mr. Taylor here. Japan has hosted Summer Olympics and Winter Olympics. So how many, including the current Olympics, how many has Japan hosted in the history of the Olympics, winter and summer?
Oh, 3.
3. Okay,
I believe it's 3.
Can you name
Sure,
it?
1964 Tokyo Summer Olympics.
Right.
1972 Winter Olympics in Sapporo,
right,
which is on the northernmost major island of Hokkaido.
Very good, great.
And then you have the Tokyo Olympics, which were supposed to be starting this week.
Oh, you missed a couple.
What?
1998, we hosted the Winter Olympics here in Japan in Nagano.
Oh, I forgot. My gosh. My brother went skiing here 2 weeks before that happened.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. My gosh, I forgot Nagano. And if you go to Nagano Station, you can still see the Olympics, the Olympic emblem and the logo and all that stuff in Nagano Station.
But did you know that Japan had a 1940 Olympics too?
No, I didn't. What was that?
Tokyo was supposed to be the host of the 1940 Olympics, but something happened. What was it in 1940? Oh yeah, Japan had occupied part of China and created a puppet state called Manchukuo in Japanese, and the Manchurian nation there. And there was a protest, and so actually the protest was in 1937. And Japan voluntarily took itself out of the running for the Olympics. But for some reason, somebody voted them in and they were given the Olympics. And so they tried to have it, but Japan didn't focus on the Olympics at all. It was more worried about its war efforts and its building of its colonial nation around the Pacific. And the Olympics were canceled because of their invasion in China, especially after the Nanjing incident and the 1939 declaration of war in Asia. So they didn't host it after all. They were canceled. But what's funny about these Olympics, Greg, is that the Olympics before that one was 1936 was Berlin, which was
that's right, yeah.
And Jesse Owens and imagine
and images of Hitler.
Imagine the world thinking at that time in the 1930s and in the 1930s that they would award Hitler the Olympics and then award Japan the next one, the two great nations who were the center of World War II.
The two axes of power at that time.
And who was the power of the Olympic Committee? Oh, that was in the United States at the time. I wonder why politicians would award those two powers back-to-back Olympics. Anyway, but it didn't happen. So. And the next Olympics, because of World War II, the 1940 and 1944 were canceled. And the next one was in 1948, which was in...
Oh, that's in 1948. That was in Barcelona. I hold on a second. Hold on, do something real quick.
No, it was in London. So
I knew that.
That's okay. Anyway. But Japanese, when the Japanese government, though, finally secured the Olympics in '64, it was a great thing because I'm saying we because I lived in Japan so long, we got two great things out of that. One was a national holiday, which was on October 10th. And
when was that?
Since you've been here, Greg, until last year, there was a sports day holiday in October. October 10th was sports day. And it was designated as the commemoration day of the Tokyo Olympics in '64. Now,
I didn't know that's why they did it.
Yes. And see, and people, some people have asked me, I remember my father asked me, why is the Olympics in October? It's the Summer Olympics. Well, it was so hot in Tokyo, and they were afraid of the temperature and the weather, of people getting heat stroke, and at the time there was also a worry about malaria and other kinds of diseases, that they moved it to the fall. So the Olympics actually was moved to October of that year, of 1964. So the Summer Olympics were held in the fall in Japan because it was cooler and it was easy to control. Yeah. So just in case people are around the world are worried about postponing the Olympics or delaying it or all that stuff, it's happened before and it will happen again. I mean, right now we have a 1-year delay because of the COVID, the pandemic. And that's okay, But as of yesterday, we have now exactly 1 year until the next Olympics, and they want to have it next year on July. In Japan it would be July 23rd next year. Is what they want to do, and who knows what's going to happen with the pandemic.
Well, there was talk in the news media, but this is actual talk that was quoted apparently from the government officials that said that the Olympic planners and the Tokyo organizers and the government apparently agree, from what I understand, agree that if there's another situation such as this year where there is the COVID-19, that further postponement is not possible. So if the Olympics don't happen a year from now, they're not going to happen.
In Japan, they're not going to happen
in Japan,
right? And which means they'll probably have to skip this Olympics entirely and wait until the next one. I don't know where the next country is, and who knows, what's going to happen then? Because at this moment, the pandemic is worldwide. So even if it's Tokyo's not going to happen and they're going to wait till the next one, there still could be a pandemic.
See, this shows you how complicated we've become in the world, and so filled with information and mass media and instant consumption. 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, you could probably easily say, okay, the next Olympics is going to be in such and such a city, because there wasn't so much to remember. But in our busy lives every day, I don't even know where the next Olympics are going to be. I know that the Olympics someday in the next 8 years are scheduled to be in Los Angeles again.
Right.
Is that? I think so. Yeah.
I think so. I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. Maybe 2028 Olympics.
Yeah, but 2024. Oh, I know. It's supposed to be in France, in Paris.
Is that right?
Yes, because I remember when the Notre Dame Cathedral burnt, Macron, the current president of France, wanted to get the Notre Dame Cathedral rebuilt in time for the Paris Olympics. That's not going to happen either, because they've kind of
I would be very surprised. I mean, especially with the COVID-19, and they still don't know the long-term status of that cathedral.
They've slowed down all the restoration work because people can't be working out there with a pandemic floating around them. So, well, anyway, but the Olympic history in Japan, it's not as great as America. To be honest, there are some great Japanese moments in Olympic history that Greg doesn't watch as much NHK television as I do. NHK
I just watch the normal broadcast stations that,
the NHK is like PBS in America, except NHK is I'm sorry, forget the America. Erase that. Or as we say in Japanese, keshite. It's actually keshite kudasai. Erase that, please. Erase that from memory. Actually, NHK is more like the BBC. We have to pay a fee to watch TV in this country, and NHK goes to them, and that gives us broadcasting. And so NHK was running all these histories of Olympics and trying to promote Olympics and keep, the fever. So they show the one or two highlights from past Olympics And it's interesting that they're showing the first Japanese person to win an Olympic medal was in I don't know, like it was 1920 or something. And it's interesting because if you read the history, the Japanese, I think he was maybe a marathoner. I think he won a silver or bronze medal, the first medalist. And it was a big deal. The problem was he wasn't Japanese, he was Korean. He was part of Japan's colonial rule of the Korean Peninsula at the time, but he was considered Japanese because Korea was under the control of Japan. So he actually wasn't Japanese, but a little dark history there. Well, anyway, but Japan has always had bad luck with some of these major events, to be honest, since World War II. The 64 Tokyo Olympics was postponed, and they had to do it in October, but they were able to do that because the world was not as complicated sports-wise as it is now. They had some troubles with the World Cup, the Soccer World Cup, which they hosted with Korea. There was a lot of logistic problems and a lot of just trying to get the infrastructure ready to handle the people. And we hosted a World Cup matches here in Niigata City, and I got to go to one of the matches, which happened to be Mexico against Ireland, not England, Ireland. It was just kind of fun.
Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed the feeling of being at an international event that people were going, yeah, that was fun. But the game, I didn't.
Was it held at Big Swan?
Yeah, that's where they build Big Chicken first. I'm Big Swan. It was the whole those games. To be honest, and being an American, as more American than I am Mexican, I'm not a big football fan. I'm not a big soccer fan.
No, nor am I. It's like 1-0 for the final score. That's kind of boring to me.
Yeah.
To see a bunch of people running around the field. Sorry, all you soccer fans out there.
Yeah. So we'll get off the soccer thing now. But the World Cup was fun, and so then that's okay. But Japan has this nice spirit, though. No matter what happens, they just say, "We'll keep trying. We'll keep trying." That's what we say, the Gamman spirit.
Gamman, yeah.
Yeah. They have the fortitude to keep fighting, to keep trying to see what happens. Well, anyway, the Olympics. Okay. Let's see what happens if the Olympics happen next year on Musings 23 or 600.
We'll be up to like 30 or 40 or 50
okay,
or 60
when we get to Musings 30 plus, we'll do a special Olympics then. Or if it's canceled, we'll do a special Olympics canceled.
That's a long time away, and with hope of a coronavirus vaccine, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Okay. We're never going to have a vaccine for the coronavirus because it's not necessary. It's going to happen. It's just those who can't handle it will die, or will get these immunities. Will develop immunity naturally, and then the virus itself will mutate into something else. We're just going to get regulated. We're going to have a flu shot for it, but it's not a vaccine. It's going to be like just a way to boost our immune system to handle the coronavirus when it rises.
A flu shot.
Flu shot.
Oh, that's what flu does. Flu shot does the same thing. I take a flu shot. I had a flu shot last year. It was $40 US.
I've never had a flu shot in my life.
I think I've had one time, and that was last year. Last autumn at a school I taught at.
I think I mentioned this in a past Musings. I'm not sure, but I did have influenza when I was a child. I had the Hong Kong strain of influenza, which was really bad and actually killed 1 million people worldwide. And in California, I think maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people died in California alone. I had it as a kid. I remember that, I was staying home for a week. But the doctor told me at the time, when I got better, that, since you got this, you should never have influenza the rest of your life. And I haven't. I haven't had influenza since then.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Anyway, okay. So Olympics, check. We'll go. Now,
check, yeah, good.
Now, let me ask Greg a big question here. What do you think is the most popular sport in Japan? Now, maybe you guys in America are thinking about it yourself, but I'm going to ask Greg, since Greg is here. And what do you think, Greg, is the most popular sport in Japan?
I think it's easy to say baseball. I think it's easy to say basketball, but I thought it was soccer or football.
Baseball is the number one sport in Japan.
Okay.
Greg, how many... Soccer?
Yeah, I thought it was soccer.
What do you think, we're in England?
No, but Japan is... You'd be surprised at how many people like soccer.
Well, yeah, no. A lot of people like soccer, but a lot more people like baseball. Now, let me ask, okay, just to educate our family and friends around the world and to educate Mr. Greg Taylor, when do you think baseball was introduced to Japan?
I don't know, probably 1937.
37? Oh, no. Professional baseball in Japan started in the 1920s.
Wow, that's great.
You don't know when? 1872.
1872.
By an American by the name of Horace Wilson.
Horace, that's an 1800s name.
There's an 18 in a Horace.
Yeah.
Horace. Anyway, Horace. So Horace Wilson introduced the game to which is now a major university in Tokyo called Keisei Tokyo. Keisei University, or the Keisei, it was a Keisei Tokyo something school, but now it's a major university. But from the 1870s until the 1920s, baseball primarily was a club sport. It was a club sport for universities, high schools, junior highs, element. They had a kind of little league and pony leagues and Babe Ruth leagues here. But in the 1920s, and I believe it was the late 20s or maybe the early 30s, what helped Japanese baseball become really big was the New York Yankees. The New York Yankees came here on what they call a barnstorming tour, a tour of Asia. They were visiting some of the military bases, the American bases that were here, that existed in Japan at the time. And this is just before the war buildup. So it's kind of a golden era of Japanese life, kind of like in the States, the Roaring 20s. And, I think that was Murderer's Row. This was Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, who's those guys.
A lot of famous
guys.
From back in the day.
And they played against the newly formed Tokyo team, and the name of that team was the Giants, the Tokyo Giants, or what they were, Kyojin. Kyojin means big person, the kanji for Kyojin. So they played against the Tokyo Giants. They played some games. The Tokyo Giants at the time had a famous pitcher, and oh man, I can't remember his name now. Sawamura, Sawa something, because the pitching award in Japan, the Cy Young Award of Japan, is called the Sawamura Award. It's named after this pitcher. He's famous because he struck out in order. The Yankees lined up the second, third, fourth. He struck out Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig back to back.
Wow.
And plus the guy before them. So I'm trying to remember who the other guy was. But
he was a monster pitcher.
He was an incredible pitcher, and Babe Ruth was quoted in the Japanese newspaper at the time saying this guy could pitch in America, and he was that good. But of course, World War II kind of disrupted any good relationships between Japan and America in terms of baseball. But baseball became so popular after the Yankees came through that the Japanese pro leagues were unified, and they set up a Kanto region teams and Kansai region. And the Kanto region teams was led by the Giants, which is in Tokyo.
That's the Tokyo area.
And in Osaka was led by what team? What team was the Hanshin, the Tigers. What you see behind me, ladies and gentlemen, is
there's the logos. The logo you can see the tiger face there. The Hanshin Tigers. That's Osaka's team.
The two oldest teams in the current Japanese professional leagues are the Tokyo Giants and the Hanshin Tigers, and they are bitter rivals. At the time, they were considered like the Yankees and the Dodgers, Brooklyn and the New York Yankees. The New York Giants were also very, very strong at the time, but they didn't have as much of a hatred of the Yankees as the Dodgers did. You know, so you can imagine the old Brooklyn Dodgers and the Yankees, and all the World Series that the Dodgers lost to the Yankees. You know, it's just incredible. But the Giants and the Tigers have that.
So you're a big fan though of the Tigers.
The only reason I'm a fan of the Tigers, well, it's a big reason. I spent my first year living in Japan in the Kansai, and I would go to see those games, to see
That's the Western
games.
region.
And I got to see Oryx Blue Wave, which was in Kobe at the time. Now it's located in Osaka. It was merged with another team, with the Kintetsu Buffaloes. Oryx Blue Wave, if you don't know, was the team that Ichiro Suzuki played on. I saw Ichiro as a rookie, and he came up as a high school kid at 18 years old playing in Japan. So I saw him in Kobe.
Ichiro. I'll tell you this, if I'm not going to name the school, but I will tell you this. Ichiro was from the Nagoya area.
That's right.
I think.
Yeah, from the Chubu area. I don't know exactly, but
and Ichiro, he played on a team that played a junior high school when he was a kid. He played on a team that played my junior high school where I taught at a city right on the edge of Nagoya, city limits, and he played against that team. And so he's from the central Japan area. Ichiro, probably the most famous Japanese baseball player of
outside of Japan.
Outside of Japan of our time right now. Of this time.
Okay.
So
I mean, if you're a Japanese baseball fan, you're a fan of Ichiro because he was good in America. Because when he was in Japan, he was not the most popular player in Japan. He was popular with young people and young women especially, but at his time in Japan, he was not the most popular Japanese baseball player, which is kind of weird if you think about it. This guy was one of the greatest baseball players in the world, but in Japan, when he played here, he was not the most popular. There were a lot of I can think a lot of giants. See, he played on a team that was in a small market, that wasn't very good, that only went to a couple playoffs. I think he only played on one championship team in Japan. That's it.
What about Nomo Hideo, who was
Nomo played on the Kintetsu Buffaloes here. See, okay, let me just briefly about Ichiro and Nomo. And those of you who remember Nomo, I think I have a Nomo baseball back here somewhere. Anyway, but when Nomo was pitching in Japan, he actually was a rebel. Nomo didn't want to be drafted the same way. He didn't go to the team that he was drafted for. He didn't want to play in the team. So he decided to play in corporate league. He played on a company team. And then he was picked up by the Kintetsu Buffaloes, I believe, which is out of Osaka. They were. And now they've been merged with Oryx Blue Wave. But he didn't like it. He didn't like playing here, but he was kind of scouted to play in America. And so in order for Nomo to go to America to play, at that time, there was a system called the posting system. Nomo didn't want to go through the posting system. He didn't, because that means American teams would have to pay money to Kintetsu Buffaloes to have the right to talk to him. And then Nomo couldn't choose the team that he could go to. His team would choose for him. Okay, you're going to go to the Dodgers, or you're going to go to the Indians, or whatever. And then Kintetsu would get all this money from those teams. Then Nomo could go, and then he could start making his own money. Actually, Ichiro went through a similar thing. Now, Nomo, in order to get around this, he had a very famous agent. His name was Don Nomura, who was Hawaiian. Actually, he was Japanese, but his family, he was half, what we call half. He biracial is the correct term now. Hafu. But Don Nomura was saying, well, you know, there's a way we can get around this. Because Don Nomura was a lawyer and he knew Japanese law. He read the bylaws of the Japanese pro leagues about the posting system and how a Japanese player could go to America and all this. And he said, you know, Nomo, you know what you should do? You should retire. So what Nomo did is he was injured. And then he took his time getting better. And he just like pitched a little bit at the end of the season and then said, I can't do it, I retire. And then he waited whatever the amount of time was, I think a couple months, 3 months or something like that. Then after that, Don Nomura went to the Dodgers and said, you know, Hideo Nomo's available if you want him to come here. And the Dodgers said, yeah, let's work on it. And they did a background thing. He says, do we have to post? He goes, nope, he retired. And then, so the Dodgers got Nomo to come to America, and it was a huge scandal. And the Kintetsu Buffaloes sued Nomo. And Japanese Pro Baseball sued him to say, you can't do that. You're
Amazing.
Ours. And they said, no, I retired. No, I retired. I waited my, you know. And so Nomo broke the rules and broke the monopoly that Japanese pro leagues had. And then there were other players after Nomo who went to pitch. You know, I'm like remember Maeda, some other pitchers who went to the Angels and stuff like that, and the Yankees. Hideki Irabu, who was great in Japan but horrible with the Yankees, for example. But then when Ichiro went, Ichiro was such a high-profile player. I mean, he was a 7 or 8 time batting champion here. He had broken all the batting records, you know, the Japanese batting records. And he flirted with 400 a few times here in Japan, batting 400. But what he told his team, the Orix Blue Wave, I want to play in America. I'm not going to renew my contract. I'm not going to play with you anymore. I want to go to America. The owner of the Seattle Mariners, I believe, is the owner or controlling partner of Sony. So Sony Records or Sony Music or Electronics. So Orix kind of went to him and said, Ichiro wants to go to America, but we want him to go to you. And Ichiro didn't mind. He didn't care. As long as he got to America, he knew that once he got to America, he could make his own deals and do whatever. And the president of the Mariners said, bring him on. And when they took him, and they didn't have to go through the posting system, they just paid a minimum amount to the team to make it to what we call save face in Japan. And then Ichiro went to America and then became, you know, Rookie of the Year, MVP his first year there, led the Seattle to the most wins in the season by any baseball team in American baseball history.
And you know, Seattle Mariners and Seattle Seahawks are my favorite teams.
Yeah, so but the Mariners didn't win anything. They got eliminated in the first round by the Yankees. Anyway, those damn Yankees. Isn't that a musical? Anyway,
yeah, that's right.
Anyway, so Nomo broke a lot of barriers for a lot of Japanese players. Now, Japanese players go to America easily. They do the time. A lot of Japanese players, especially pitchers, consider Japanese baseball, pro baseball, as kind of their development league, and then they go over to America. Some people in America have said that Japanese baseball is like, you know, AAA or, you know, in America. No,
I don't agree with that.
No,
in fact,
you can look at the World Baseball Classic and the Olympic. The Americans have always lost to Japanese teams. They can't beat them straight up. But the difference is that Japanese baseball is very fundamental. They bunt, squeezes, hit and runs, stolen bases. They do all the things that American baseball doesn't do much anymore. I was just watching the Yankees and the Nationals, the opening game, and it got rained out in the 6th innings.
Oh, too bad.
I don't know if it was rained out. It started raining. There was a delay, so I just turned it off so I can record with Ricky. So, so I don't know. Maybe the game's still on. I don't know.
But it was the opening game and it's July, middle of July, end of July.
Right. But in Japan,
it's an opening game in America.
But in Japan, they've been playing for a month now.
A month, I've seen several games on television. No people, but you get to see the
now
game.
There's people. Now there's people.
Who is the team?
5,000 people.
5,000, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 5,000. And how are they doing that? Are they spreading the people out throughout the stadium? Or
I've watched some games already on TV. So they have social distance. They close off sections and they make sure that people have to leave in a certain order or pattern so they don't get crowding at the exit. So they're really, really organized how they're doing it. So it's really nice. But anyway, the kind of baseball that's played in Japan is, I guess it comes from the Japanese style of high school baseball. Understand that in Japan, I said baseball is the most popular sport. Why? It's not necessarily because of the pros. It's because Japanese high school baseball is incredibly popular here.
Yeah, that's right.
They have a national tournament that's held
and nationally televised.
It's held now. Well, it will be held usually at the end of July and August, and it's nationally televised, live, all games, and it's a national tournament. And usually, scouts from all the pro teams in Japan go to these games to check out the pitchers or the batters or the hitters. I mean, for example, Hideki Matsui, who played for the Yankees, he was the MVP of one of the World Series for the Yankees. He was a home run hitter. His nickname is Godzilla.
Yeah.
When I saw him play in this high school tournament here in Japan. When he was such a famous hitter that in the not the championship game, but the game before the championship game, his team didn't make it to the finals because the pitcher for the other team would not pitch to him. He got up to bat 5 times and they walked him 5 times. And I've never heard a high school baseball game. I mean, we're talking in Koshien Stadium, which is where the Hanshin Tigers play. 55,000 people packed there to watch Matsui hit a home run in high school. He was 17, 18 years old. And 55,000 people booed the pitcher. Now, this is a high school game. And it's on TV in Japan.
And you don't hear Japanese booing per se.
No, I mean, but they did. They did because they wanted to see a home run by Godzilla. But the next year he was drafted by the Yomiuri Giants, and then they won like 4 or 5 championships. And then he was traded, then he wanted to go to America, and then he goes to the Yankees. I mean, he went from the greatest championship team in Japan. I think the Tokyo Giants have won 27 championships in their history. How many have the Yankees won? Maybe the same. Between the Yankees, between the Yankees and the Giants, between them, you probably have 50 or more championships, national championships. Amazing.
Well, my late father-in-law, his favorite team was the Yomiuri Giants. He was a Daifan.
But now, Greg, you're a big fan of baseball, aren't you?
Oh, yes. So my team in Japan, and here we're going to show some pictures in this Musings from Japan number 8. My favorite team in Japan right now is it's Chunichi Dragons, and it's Nagoya's baseball team, and it's a result of my father-in-law, because a couple of years ago, my father-in-law, we got free tickets somehow. My wife got free tickets, so we decided that I'd take my father-in-law. And so I took my father-in-law. We met in Nagoya, got on the subway and rode from Kanayama Station in Nagoya to up north to the Nagoya Dome. And the Nagoya Dome, it's a dome stadium, so there's indoor baseball.
Is that why it's called Nagoya Dome?
That's right.
Oh, okay.
And so it's indoor baseball, no weather elements to worry about, typhoons or heavy downpour of rain. We're going to get rain today, so if there's a baseball game, it'd be rained out. and my father-in-law was a huge fan of the. He knew stats, he knew players, and he gave me a book on baseball from like 2018. He gave me that year's great players, all their statistics, and it was quite interesting. It's a good learning experience for me for Japanese language. In addition to Japanese baseball, which is basically, I mean, there's some differences obviously, but it's baseball, and they're playing baseball like an American. It's just really exciting. It was exciting to go to the baseball game. And you'll see these pictures, live pictures that I took at the Chunichi Dragons, which is Nagoya's team, and Yomiuri Giants, which is Tokyo. And so there's a lot of baseball teams in the leagues, in the major leagues here in Japan, in the Japanese major leagues. And what's interesting is that Japan is very similar to America in terms of the playing season. It's about the same length, and the Japanese World Series follows.
It's shorter than the American.
Yeah, is it?
It's only 140 games. Japan, America's 162.
So, it's similar in length. But
one thing that's funky, in Japan, you can have a tie.
Oh, I didn't know that.
See, because Japan, they have a time limit on games. You know that, right?
No, I didn't.
Oh, they have a time limit because you have to get home. Because a lot of people, like you said, you took the train, to get there.
Yeah.
The trains stop at a certain time, so the game has to stop at a certain time so people can get on the train.
The trains stop around 11:30 or midnight.
Right, so the games do not
around the middle of the night.
All Japanese baseball games stop at 10 p.m. And whatever the score is, that's the score. Yeah. So you have ties here, and it's kind of weird. They don't play them off. They don't have tiebreakers. They just have ties. Yeah, wins, losses, and ties.
So,
if a game's rained out.
It's rained out.
You don't play it. You don't replay it. You don't play it over. You don't have a makeup game.
Well, I remember how excited my father-in-law was to go to the game, and I remember the experience of going to the game. It was.
Did you
get different than America because it's considerably noisier than an American baseball game.
Did you have your Chunichi Bachi?
What are those? The little clappers?
Clappers, yeah.
We didn't have those, but many people did. And the thing that was the same was the food vendors. Like the young pretty ladies, in this case, the young pretty ladies bringing beer or beverages.
I don't remember at Dodger Stadium having pretty young ladies bring me beer, but I always saw an old guy or some guy carrying on beer. Here it's like it's a girl, a nice girl wearing a mini skirt with and the team jersey on, or the beer jersey, right. Asahi, or right?
Yeah, and I think I had a beer, maybe one beer, and then I had soda pop,
or three.
No, I had Coca-Cola, and I forgot what else you could get. You could get food. The food we got. Food.
What kind of food did you get there?
I think you could get Japanese treats.
It's mostly Japanese food. I mean,
I don't know. I think I just got a hot dog or something.
They had hot dogs there?
I don't know. I can't remember. I can remember going to the food stand, getting up and getting some food for my father-in-law and I.
You see, I can't
remember exactly.
My parents came to visit me in Japan my second year in Japan, and I took them to a Hanshin baseball game. It was my dad. I wanted my dad to see. I took them to a Hanshin baseball game. We saw the Hanshin Tigers play the Taiyo Whales, which doesn't exist anymore. The Taiyo Whales are now the Yokohama Bay Stars.
I have a question. Who is the? Sometimes I see on my Google app that pops up on my notifications on my phone.
Yeah.
I'll see Chunichi Dragons playing other teams, and it'll show the box scores.
Right.
But what I want to know is who is Dana, D, capital D, small E.
DNA.
DNA.
Yeah, DNA is, I think that is the Yokohama team has now become DNA. That's the company.
Oh, okay.
The company. See, all the baseball teams are company names. Like the Giants are actually Yomiuri, which is the
Yakult Swallows, which is a yogurt company.
Well, actually, it's a beverage company, not just yogurt.
Company, yeah.
And Chunichi is what, Greg?
Chunichi is the newspaper, maybe.
It's a newspaper, right? It's a newspaper.
Yeah, we get the Chunichi Shimbun every day.
Right. And Hanshin is?
Hanshin is the freight or shipping company.
It's a freight and shipping company. They also have their own department stores and train lines.
Oh, yeah.
Hanshin Hankyu. So, like, for example, the Orix Kintetsu is also a train and shipping company.
Yeah.
And see, down in South, SoftBank Hawks.
SoftBank, that's right.
Right, and you have the Nippon Ham Fighters.
Yeah, what's that all about?
Nippon Ham. It's ham. It's sliced ham. So the company is called Nippon Ham. Japan pork meat.
Japan ham.
So they just got the Nippon Ham Fighters.
Fighters.
For a long time I thought it was Ham Fighters. No.
Okay,
Nippon Ham Fighters.
The area north of Tokyo, like in the Tokyo metropolitan region, Saitama. What's their team? Saitama has a baseball team.
That would be Yakult is in Meiji Jingu. Saitama. Yeah, who is?
I know Saitama. Oh, sorry, whoa. Saitama has it. Yeah, I'm sitting on the floor Japanese style.
Whoa, I'm sitting in my chair American style.
Anyway,
I think what I want to do, I want to get to the food. Back to the food. See, the food at the Japanese baseball game is like I took my parents. We had takoyaki, which are
that's right.
Little
balls
of octopus balls.
Yeah, they're not really octopus balls, Mark. You know how funny that sounds.
Sorry. Octopus dumplings. It's sliced octopus.
Well, they are balls, but they're not. Huh?
They're in the shape of a ball.
That's right. They're not octopus
balls. And then yakisoba.
Yakisoba, which is fried noodle.
Barbecue fried, teppan fried noodles and vegetables.
It's incredible. Delicious. And it's a summer treat.
And they didn't have hot dogs, but they have a wiener, a frank. All it is a hot dog on a stick. And that's the kind of thing. And
can you get American dogs there?
I don't remember, but I don't remember either. I just remember my mother going, "Yuck!"
So you need to tell our viewers what an American dog is.
Oh, an American dog, and we're not talking
delicious.
It's a pit bull. No,
I'm talking about the food.
The food, sorry.
You were talking about wieners and hot dogs.
Yeah,
What's an American dog?
Actually, they call it American dog. It's actually a corn dog.
A corn dog, yeah.
Corn dog, and they associate corn with America, which is true. I mean, the maize or corn comes from North America, or from the Americas. So, and it's corn battered dog, so it's American. It must be an American dog. So I always use this in lessons and say, this is good English, but it really doesn't describe what this is. An American dog is a pit bull. We're not eating pit bull. So anyway, but maybe if you request, we can do more. Since baseball season's just getting started, we'll talk about baseball more as the time comes on. I want to get to the last one. Now, we've already mentioned Olympics and baseball, and we talked a little bit about soccer being popular. But right now, another sport right now in Japan that's been going on since the pandemic, actually was even held in March. This sport, which is the oldest sport. Actually, I saw this written somewhere I believe this is the oldest professional sport in the world.
And it's a true Japanese sport.
And it is, just for everyone.
Osumo.
Or as we say, sumo. Sumo wrestling. Okay. Now, sumo is supposedly started about 700 BC. BC. So
there's a sumo rink at the local park near here.
Yeah, well, that's not a rink. What's it called? It's not a rink.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so. Oh my gosh. I'm so. Well,
it's called a dohyo.
You can see.
God, what are you doing to me, Greg? Okay. Anyway,
it's a rink.
Okay. Yeah, there's a sumo rink over there. Oh, they skate. God. These fat guys just skating over there.
I'm sorry for our Ozumo fans out there.
Anyway, sumo was started a long time. Actually, I'm sorry. I said 700. At 70 BC, it started, and it was a Shinto ritual, and it was a way. It was a way to imitate a legend of these two gods, very large gods who battled each other to scare off the evil spirits of the land. And these gods did battle, and the spirits left, and then they decided to do this battle ritually to keep scaring off these evil spirits. And in 700 AD, during the Nara period, is when it became kind of codified into a semi-professional, which means that these wrestlers at that time became sponsored by samurai or daimyo or by rich people. And so they would travel around Japan and do these rituals. And the reason why that rink, as Greg called it, it's called a dohyo. Actually, a dohyo is a shrine. It is designed as a shrine. It's a square mound of dirt, and that dirt is actually blessed dirt. It's special dirt they use. And then they have 4 posts, and it holds the Shinto roof on top of it.
What's the circle?
The circle is the fighting area where you must fight in. Now, it used to be square at one time, and then they made it circle during the Edo period, which is around 1600 in the Edo period of Japan. Now, it has been professional since the 700s. So we're talking what? I can't count, Greg.
Approximately 1,300 years.
1,300 years. They've been
1,300 years.
They've been pushing people around. So now the thing is about sumo is that the idea is that what's your image? What's your image of a sumo wrestler, Greg?
Gigantic,
right?
Extremely obese, or person.
Right.
A man, adult male, that is well fed, and obviously looks like they don't exercise, but they really do.
Okay, then that's true. All of those things are true of the modern sumo wrestler, pretty much. But actually, traditionally, the sumo wrestlers were not fat at all. They were just big people. I've been to the Sumo Wrestling Museum in Tokyo at the main hall, the Ryogoku Kokikan, which is the Ryogoku Fighting Hall, or the place where they have sumo. There's a museum there. And I saw they have footprints of these sumo wrestlers from the 19th century, and their feet are like this much bigger than my feet. And I wear a size 11 and a half, 12, and they're bigger. It's like Shaquille O'Neal's foot or bigger, if you can imagine. These guys were just giant people. They weren't necessarily fat. I've seen pictures of sumo wrestlers of the 19th century, early 20th century. They're not fat at all. They would be great linebackers, or linemen, But after World War II, the sumo wrestlers they started to build bulk more. And the bulk, but they're extremely flexible. To be a sumo wrestler at the top level, you have to be able to do the splits. So imagine weighing 420 pounds, some of these guys, and they can do the splits and get up from it. They can go down and get up for it by themselves. They're extremely flexible. They're very strong. extremely strong. And I've shaken hands with sumo wrestlers. I had the privilege of meeting Akebono. I have his sumo sign up here. I'll show a picture of that later. But I got to meet some of these guys and seen them face to face. These guys are just huge. I mean, it's like we're looking at a football player, American football player. That's what you're looking at. Or for like a rugger, if you're an Aussie guy, these guys are they're like rugby players. They're like linemen. They're linebackers, and they're extremely flexible. And they're extremely quick. They have such good footwork, a lot, because they're working in a circle. And the rules are very simple. First one down loses.
Yeah.
Now, for a long time, up until the Edo period, actually, any rules, anything goes. Sumo wrestlers used to die in the ring. And actually, if you go back to the ancient times, the loser had to commit suicide. The harikiri, or whatever they call it.
It's pretty tough.
Well, yeah, it's pretty tough, yeah. But it was an honor. It was because it was considered a religious ritual. Well, of course, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I hope not.
No,
and I see on TV there, wrestler commits suicide when they lose. Oh, there'd be nobody wrestling.
I know. Well, only a few left at the end of the match. Anyway, we'll probably have to spend a lot of time to talk about sumo another time, I think. Because sumo, there's lots of little things about sumo. And one thing that I have a passion for in Japan is sumo. I've been to the tournaments, the basho. I know the winning techniques, or what's called kimarite. I know the kinds of styles of sumo, the otsu sumo, the oshi sumo, which means the pushing, or thrusting, or using the belt, the mawashi. I know a lot of the terminology, and actually, sumo helped me learn kanji.
That's great. Japanese, Chinese characters that are used in Japanese.
These guys,
those characters there, yeah. Well, because you used them in context as well,
right? And when you're
which is something you were emphasizing about learning Japanese and using the language and learning it in context,
right? You can study the books all you want. You can sit there and read a book and learn all the kanji. And I know people who do that all the time. But the reality is, it doesn't mean a thing unless you see it in context and can do it.
I'm going out of the picture here because I'm reaching towards my bookshelf. But this is an example of a Japanese basic kanji book.
Show us a page. This is
512, and there's 2,000 or 3,000 in daily use. But this is 512. This is like
show an example of a lesson. Yeah, like that.
These are simple, but the kanji, the kanji itself is difficult. But these are the 500 first basic kanji that you should learn, or that this book recommends.
And see, what it does is it gives you what's called the radicals. It says it shows you how the kanji was developed and how it was written, and it's got its own history. Like wing, show wing.
Let's see.
You just had it right there on the upper right-hand corner. Wing.
Yeah. Okay. So here.
Show that picture.
It shows it's a mnemonic memory device where you learn how to, shows a chicken or a bird, and there's the character in Chinese, Japanese.
But you can see how it developed from Chinese from the right side to the left side is the Japanese.
Well, I'm not a language expert, but I'll tell you this from what I understand, Chinese characters are used one time. In Chinese, for example, a Japanese character can have many different readings,
right? But not in Chinese.
Not in Chinese.
One use. That's why a lot of people say Chinese is actually easier to learn than Japanese.
That's right.
Writing, because
And so I have probably 10 different books. I'm going out of the picture here, but I have 10 different books on Japanese writing. The kanji, the Chinese characters from Japan borrowed from China.
Right.
But that would help you with sumo, learning in context, learning.
In context, because the name of all sumo wrestlers are written. Well, let's see.
In the kanji.
Keep talking, Ray. I'll get my banzuke.
So folks, everybody, this is something that if you live in Japan for an extended length of time, if you live in Japan for maybe 1 or 2 years and you're not particularly interested, or you don't know the Japanese language, it's nothing of importance to you. But generally speaking, but to someone like Mark, who's lived here going on 30 years, and to me,
when on my
I'm in my 8th year. This is my 8th summer in Japan, and nonstop, really. I'm interested in learning the kanji, the Japanese characters.
This is a banzuke. This is called this in English would be kind of the list of the wrestlers in the current tournament. Now this one is from a past tournament. Heisei 17年11月13日. This is from the winter basho. And anyway, but this is kanji. This is the kanji that I learned.
Yeah.
So this has the name of every single wrestler. So like it says, the rank, which is Ozeki, and then where they're from, this is Oita, and this is Chiyo Taikai. That's his name, Chiyo Taikai.
I see to the right, there's a foreigner. Look.
What?
There's a foreigner.
I'm sorry, I have to erase that.
They're from Russia. Where are they from?
Let's see, which foreigner?
Go back and show us the thing. So if you look,
over
go
here,
down
right?
to it's about 4 from the center to the right. 4 or 5. There's
right here.
Katakana.
Right here. Maegashira, Russia. And
Russia. So they were not even a Japanese national.
Right. God, I can't remember him.
This small tournament.
Shiotozan. Yeah, Russian. I mean, this tells you, Mongolia, Bulgaria, Mongolia, Russia, Chiba. The Yokozuna at this time was from Mongolia. Yokozuna, this is the top rank. And this is Asashoryo. He was he ended up leaving the sumo because he kind of like faked being sick. He said, I'm injured, I can't do the tournament. So he went back to Mongolia, and then they have pictures of him playing soccer in Mongolia and riding horses and partying with all these people. And they said, he came back and said, I'm sorry, I lied. But when you're a Yokozuna, which is the number one, you're the best wrestler. If you do something like that as a Yokozuna, you have to retire. That's it. You've got to quit. There's no choice. If you're an Ozeki or the next rank or Sekiwake, Komusubi, Maegashira on down, you can say, I'm sorry, and pay money, and then do what's called hansei. You'll have to apologize, get on your hands and knees and bow to your oyokata, which is your leader of your group. You would hansei to your oyokata and say, gomenasai, I won't do that again. And then he would rebuke you, in public, and then no problem. But Yokozuna, you're supposed to be, by tradition, you're the next thing to the god. You represent the god. And remember, this is over 1,000 years tradition. So we're talking from 70 BC, the idea of the two gods. Yokozuna, that's what the Yokozuna is. And there's always two, one in the east and one in the west. So the banzuke is written this way, east and west side. So all the representatives, all the wrestlers represent the two sides. Anyway, but I think we need to spend more time on it because sumo is very intricate, and it's a lot more complicated than people think. It's not just pushing and two fat guys pushing each other around the ring. There is a technique, and there is a lot of skill, and it takes a long time to become good at sumo, because this banzuke tells you the whole tournament. I just showed you the top, but as you can see, the top have big letters, but the further down you go, they get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller to the lowest level, Jonidan and Sandame. I mean, these are like kids. They could be, I think to join sumo, you have to graduate from junior high school. Imagine you could join this out of junior high school. You're 14 years old. You can become a sumo wrestler. Right? Greg, do you remember Takawaka era? Takanohana, Wakanohana, the brothers?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
Was I? No.
No, you weren't here. Anyway, there was some two famous sons, or they were brothers, and they were sons. Their father was Wakanohana II, who was a great yokozuna, very, very famous. When Greg and I, when we came in 1983, their father was wrestling with Shionofuji, and Onokuni was the yokozuna. I remember these. These are the guys who are like the announcers of the NHK broadcast for sumo. They were wrestlers when we came here in 1983.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
But they started in sumo when they were 15, and when they were 18, they were almost at the top of this banzuke. At 18, it was incredible. There was a period in the 90s when I came here, from 91 to about 2000. It was the Wakataka era. They were in charge. They were the best, greatest Japanese wrestlers, but at the same time, there were three Americans, Hawaiians, Konishiki, Akebono, and Musashimaru. And they, Akebono and Musashimaru, it was interesting. Akebono became yokozuna, then Takanohana became yokozuna. Then Musashimaru became yokozuna, then Wakanohana. So the two brothers against the two gaijin, foreigners. And it was like sumo was the top, most popular sport. Everyone watched it, and especially when the foreigners were fighting the Nihonjin, the Japanese. It was like this war. It was so much fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, I just hope that someday that I'm able to go to Nagoya to see the tournament when it's in Nagoya.
Well, actually, right now there is a tournament going on, and it's in Tokyo, but it's actually, this is the time it's in Nagoya. It's always in July is Nagoya, but they moved it to Tokyo because of the pandemic. So, Anyway, I think we should. I think we gone over time a little bit.
You hear that? You hear the siren? Can you hear it?
Yes.
We've talked about it. It's exactly 12 noon as we're recording this.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's lunchtime.
That's that siren goes off at 6 a.m., 12 noon, 6 p.m., and 9 p.m.
What's time?
You hear it every day, and it's probably a 10-minute walk from my house.
So I guess it's time for lunch then. So
yep, it's time for lunch.
So I want to thank you very much, everyone, for.
Thank you so much for. What's that?
Musings 3 plus 5 is
8.
8.
Musings from Japan, number 8, everyone.
8. Anyway, I hope all of you are doing well in the pandemic. I know that a lot of places there's been an increase in cases. Here in Japan, there has been in Tokyo, and where you're at, you've had the most that you've ever had. It's getting worse. Right. It's getting worse there. For me, we've had 2, and they came from Tokyo. So anyway, thank you very much, everyone. I hope everyone takes care and has fun. And if you have any questions, I think next time we'll do sumo. What do you think, Greg? All right. So thank you. All right. Adios, ladies and gentlemen.
Goodbye, everyone.
Otsukaresama deshita.
Otsukaresama deshita.
Everyone take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Next time. Bye-bye.